This podcast may contain paid advertisements, but more on that later. Welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, your go-to resource for unraveling the intricacies of business and leadership, honing in on the essence of bootstrapping a business from scratch. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a dedicated bootstrapper, or a leader navigating life's various challenges, this podcast is crafted just for you. I'm Isaiah O'Connor, your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, and my mission is to guide you towards personal and professional growth. Let's embark on this journey together. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm sorry I didn't get a new content up for last week. Things got hectic and crazy and busier than I had planned, so sorry, missed a week. So let's jump into this. Today I'm going to be tackling a new required secondary power of humility. It's one I did not have in my original series on required secondary powers. But as I've been thinking about it and looking into it, I've decided that I think that having humility is not only a required secondary power, how it is almost a required first power to have alongside everything else. It helps you become teachable. It helps you be determined. Oh my goodness, I can't talk today. And it helps you with having discipline. It helps you with every aspect of being an entrepreneur, being a leader, being a bootstrapper. It is super important. And it helps you be a giver, which will be the next episode, talking about being a giver. So, by the way, you can go up and go through you can search up, you can find the beginning of the series. But just as a nutshell, what is a required secondary power? It's when you have your main product, or your main service, and your main skill set. That is your primary power. For example, I do balloon animals. I do balloon decor. I do balloons. That's my superpower. However, to make my business work, it required a lot of other things to make that work. And that's the trick. A lot of people have a great product, a great service that they do, that they're super, super skilled at, and they're amazing at, and they don't get anywhere because they don't have what it takes to keep going. And these are the required secondary powers that you need to keep going. Now, the reason I use the term power instead of attribute is because I think it's a little bit more fun to approach this with superheroes and comic books in mind. And I actually got this whole idea because I was reading a page from tvtropes.org. Great website, dangerous website. You might wind up spending hours on there that you don't actually have. But I ran across this trope called required secondary powers. It's talking about how a lot of superheroes, sorry, can't talk today, need other powers to make the primary power work. So, super speed needs to be super heat resistant, so they don't burn up into flames from friction as they run, as an example. So I thought that was kind of a fun idea, so I applied it to business. So that's what we're kind of looking into and exploring here. Now, let's jump into humility. Why is humility so important? Because it's like the power that powers the other powers, if that makes any sense whatsoever. To have a heart for learning, you have to be humble to be able to ask for help. to learn, to ask to learn. As a start, let's just start with this. What is the dictionary definition of humility? It's a noun. This is from the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. Humility is a noun, the quality of not thinking that you are better than other people, the quality of being humble. Now, I want you to note, being humble does not mean that you're weak or subservient in any way, shape, or form. This is very important. Being humble means you think about others first and you tend to do what it needs to be done to help other people, to help the goal, to help the team. You're more concerned about everyone else and your business goal than you are about your own glory. That's humility, basically. And by the way, as I was saying about the humility is learning last podcast, I mentioned the Mr. Olds, Robin Olds, the fighter pilot. He humbled himself in front of his men and had lower ranked officers teach him how to fly jet planes, even though he was a World War II double ace. I think he shot down like 13 planes in World War II. He knew how to fly planes, just not jets. But he was humble enough to know that he didn't know how to fly jets. And he earned his men's respect by letting them teach him. That's humility. That humility drove his teachable spirit. It was undergirding that whole secondary power of being teachable. And there's a lot of history, a lot of examples of humble leaders that are super important and have made a huge impact in history. Now, I purposely picked business examples. You can find other examples of humble leaders throughout history, lots of them. But because this is a business and bootstrapping podcast, business examples works for me. Now, we can start with Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. Now, Hewlett and Packard formed a company, which we now call HP. So if you have a printer that gives you nightmares, you can blame them. No, joking aside. The guys that started HP were very, very humble. They were known for their humility. They were known for it. They were focused on maintaining humility within their management, and they even created what is called the HP way. Worth a good Google search. Matter of fact, if you go to my blog post, which I will link to my blog in the show notes, I actually put a list of resources for this episode. There were so many different resources that I actually put a source list in my blog on the bottom there. But they built their company on trust and respect and being humble. They were not ones to toot their own horn. They weren't ones to grab the spotlight. They kind of shunned it. They didn't really like it. But they were still amazing leaders. And there's an example, and there where Dave Packard gave up north of $22 million in order to serve the country. That's humility. When your own personal gain is you don't care. How many people do you know would give up $22 million to serve your country? Not a lot. I can't remember which one. Sorry. One of them actually stayed in the same house that he bought before they were wealthy with his wife, and they lived there his whole life. Nothing fancy, just a simple plain house. They weren't out there to create a name for themselves. They're out there to build a great business. Now, that example I heard about a little bit from the amazing book, Good to Great. Again, the book Good to Great is a must read for entrepreneurs, leaders, business people. I absolutely recommend it. Not a paid advertisement at all. It's just an amazing book. Go check it out. And in that book, the author, Jim Collins, he wrote the book, but he actually had a whole research team that researched the book. In his research, he found that he has what are called level 5 leaders. Level 4 leaders and level 5 leaders are the top 2 levels of leadership in his book. And he actually wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review titled Level 5 Leadership, The Triumph of Humility and Fierce Resolve. And again, I absolutely recommend that article. It's amazing. The whole book's great. That article is kind of a synopsis of the humble leader, and it's amazing. He wrote more on humility, better on humility than I can. So I have to give a major shout out to Jim Collins. He really nails it with that article. Again, link will be on my blog post, which I will link to in the show notes on there. But he explains that level 4 leaders are anything but humble. It's about them. They're talking big game. They're in the media a lot. They're all the attention on them. They talk about how great they are and how they did all this. All these things to turn around the company, and they're amazing and they talk a great game. But their success is usually short-lived. And even if the time at their company is great, as soon as they leave, the company just collapses. Humble leaders, level 5 leaders, when they leave, the company keeps going. They build something bigger than themselves, and it continues on after they leave, which is amazing. And Jim Collins talks about this principle called the window and the mirror principle. And if you go to the actual website and go to where I upload this podcast, the image I created using AI is a picture of a window and a mirror. And this is why. Because level 4 leaders, when they have a window and a mirror, they go out when they're doing good, and when the company's doing good and things are going great, they go to the mirror and they look at themselves in the mirror and say, "You're amazing. You're special. You did this. You're great." But when things go bad, when things fail, when things are not looking good, they go out to the window, look at all their employees, all their team, out the window, and start yelling at them and telling them how horrible they are, how bad they are, and how they screwed up. That is a level 4 leader. Sure, they can bring the company up. They can change things around for a little bit, but their attitude is not humble, and it's not long-lasting. Now, however, a level 5 leader, now they are humble, and they are just amazing people. And when they go to the window and they look at their employees, they look out and say, "You guys did great. You are amazing." They will look for other things other than themselves to give credit for the good things. Matter of fact, as another example I came across is with Buck Knives. Buck Knives is a company that was started by a Christian. I am a Christian. Comes on my podcast from time to time. But in Buck Knives, I don't think they realize it, they actually use this exact example in a document one of their founding fathers put into the knives, which is when things go well, they give the credit to God. When things go badly, they take the blame. And that's the other part. A level 5 leader, when things go bad, goes to the mirror and say, "You screwed up. You need to fix this. Why aren't you doing what you need to do? Level 5 leaders take the blame when things go bad and give the credit away when things go good. And that is amazing if you have a leader like that, where they can take the blame and they give the credit. It's not always easy to do that either. It's really tempting to take the credit for things. And I can tell you something. If you've ever worked for a level 4 leader who take all the credit and give you all the blame, they're absolutely miserable to work with. And here's a kind of a negative example here, but this one happened to me. It still bothers me a bit to this day, I have to admit. So I was working at a company. I'll be nice and not mention the name. But I was working at a company. We sold various products. I was a salesman working at this company. My boss left for a week to go do something or other. Don't know what. He took a week off and he was gone. When he was gone, he asked me, hey, we have our discontinued and discounted table where we're just trying to get rid of these products that we're no longer selling. Get rid of them. Make a display table. This is something all this company is going to do. I need you to make this nice display table to sell the products. So I went there and I set up the table. I set it up as best I could. I try to put the low dollar items kind of off to the side. I kind of made them point to the middle with the high ticket items in the middle. So when you walked by, your eyes would drop on the big ticket item first before you notice the smaller items. So I took a lot of time to do it. I spent a couple hours setting it up. So I got it all set up, and the couple days later, the manager came back in. He's like, oh, great, cool, good job. And then later that day, the district manager for the whole company in charge of sales, who was going around, her job that month was to go to every single store and check on their discounted, devalued items to see who made a good display. And I was standing right there, and this manager was there, and she goes, wow, that's a great display. Matter of fact, that's the best display I've seen in the whole district. Thank you so much. You guys got the right idea. You did it perfectly. This is what I want to do. This is great. And my manager spoke up, and I thought, okay, cool. I thought he was going to say, yeah, I have a great crew. We did this together, whatever. Something like that. Even if he didn't say, oh yeah, this guy here did it, pointing to me. I was standing right there. He could have done that too. That would have been nice. But I didn't really expect to get the credit. But I thought maybe he had a good crew, or he could say something like that. What did he do? No. He goes, yep, I made a great display, didn't I? I take extra care to make sure I do everything perfectly right. I did such a great job at this. I didn't say anything. Because she goes, oh yeah, sure, yes you did. You did an amazing job. And she just gave him the credit. He took the credit and walked out. He took the credit for my work as his success. And when sales fell, he blamed me and the other crew members. He did not like them. I mean, they didn't like him, sorry. When we had a slow day, where we didn't have a lot of customers come in, he would chew us out for the failure of the store to do well. So that was a level 4 leader, because he was good at getting sales and he was good at getting some numbers up, but he wasn't good at the whole humble part, and it really hurt as an employee. And quite honestly, I did not stick around very long under that manager. I left. And so did the other guys. We did not stay there. So if you're that type of guy that takes all the credit, you're going to drive people away. You're going to drive your employees away. And you know what? If you really bother your employees and push on them and push them away, you're not going to do good, because upset employees are not nice with customers. It really does affect things. but good leaders, good humble leaders, you can become very loyal to them. I've had a few really humble leaders. I had this one guy named Chris, and we had a team. We worked with him, and we had a great summer. Our department made $2 million in 2 months. It was at an arcade in a casino, and we did an amazing job getting these people in, and it was us, the team. And he came out and he told everyone what a great team we were. He wrote out something saying, hey, we did this, you guys did great, you guys are doing amazing, you guys are doing really good. And he was a great leader. He really took care of us. We were fiercely loyal to him. Most of the people working for him wound up going off to go to college and do other stuff. Matter of fact, this podcast, one of the guys I worked with under this guy was Jason St. Clair, the guy who runs the Athos business podcast and the one who started this whole website and Athos business program and got me in and got me writing and got me producing these. And it's because of this amazing leader who's very humble. When things went bad, he kind of was like, oh, what can I do? He took the blame, and he came to us, his other workers and the other leaders under him, and said, what can we do to fix this together? He never was like, what did you do wrong? You did wrong, you did wrong, you did wrong. He didn't jump on us when things went bad. He said, okay, here's the problem. What can we do to fix the problem? Now, of course, if somebody did something really wrong, he would step in and correct them and or fire them if need be. Because, yes, we had some people there that did very much justly deserve to be fired. So, yeah. You can't always... A good leader doesn't let bad people in his team. But he made an amazing team. And the upper management decided to replace him. And most of the people eventually left after that because we were loyal to him, not to the place, because he was such an amazing leader. Now, those are just a couple examples. Now, I want to go on to something that struck me when I was writing this blog, the blog post version of this. Matter of fact, I thought I had already written a blog post on humility, and apparently I didn't, so I started from scratch. So as I did this, I realized something, that humble people tend to have a giving spirit in there. It's not about them, it's about others. They're humble and they give. They are givers by nature. And it struck me that, wow, wait, there's a link to this to another study. And there's a study I heard about by a Wharton professor named Adam Grant. And he had these scale of different people, takers, givers, and I forget the exact list of attributes. But he found that of the 3 groups of people he found that there was one group that were populated the highest, the most successful people, and the least successful people. And that was the people that were givers. Nice guys, basically. Nice guys don't finish last, per se. They can. Because in his study, he found that givers, nice guys, that were a little bit of a doormat. Personal experience. I know what it's like to be a doormat. I've been good at that in the past. But a giver that was a doormat or so focused on other people, they never focused on themselves, they never really climb high or succeed. But givers that are kind and humble, but still strong with a fiery resolve, as Jim Collins calls it, a fierce resolve, they are at the top. So givers are at the top of the most successful people and the lowest of the successful people. Everyone else is in the middle. Even those taker guys are like hard charging me. They don't do as well. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a whole blog post on that next blog post. So we'll come back to this. But I do see that being, again, humble and a giver linked. Humble and being a learner linked. So important is humility. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pause right here, go into the mid-episode break. And hey, guess what? I finally had a moment to create a little intro and outro to the mid-break stinger. So enjoy the little musical clip as we go into our next section. And welcome to the mid-break. This is the part of the episode where I give out any announcements and I will read out any new Apple Podcast 5-star reviews and any new patrons. This week we don't have any, so won't be reading them out. But I do have some announcements. First announcement is going forward to the next couple of weeks, I may or may not be able to always upload a new podcast, so I will unfortunately have to resort to re-uploads of existing podcasts just to keep you guys with something to listen to. I will be trying to get ahead right now, record several episodes a day when I get a chance, and we'll see how that goes on. Right now, I'm working 6 days a week, and when I'm home, my boys are home. I've moved out of my main office for my business, moved into my house, so don't have a lot of quiet spaces to run away and record to. So do forgive me as we go forward. It's going to be a little hit and miss on the new uploads, but I will try as fast as I can to get these up and running. Also, I mentioned it last week, I have now removed the $5 entry point on Patreon to go into our Discord server. I figured I have a Facebook page you can reach me at for free. You can email me for free. Why have a paywall for a Discord server? I didn't think that made sense, so I've actually removed that requirement. You can now just come join us on Discord. I will be putting the link in the show notes for that. As far as Patreon is concerned, go ahead. It'd be great if you check out, see if you can help the show out. Because if I start getting some more income in onto the show, I can start doing cool things like maybe hiring an editor to make these episodes sound better. That would be nice. And if I can get an editor, that means I can record and send it off. They'll make it nice for me and get it uploaded. It will help actually increase my content output because I will not be having to do all the editing and the uploading and the cleaning up and the posting and all this other stuff. So that's one of the things I would like to do in the future is have professional editing on the podcast and be able to pay someone. Because again, one of my core philosophies is as a bootstrapper, as an entrepreneur, you help other people by being in business. So if this podcast grows, I can start employing people and helping pay other people's bills as well as my own, which I think is really cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump back into the episode. Okay, so in the first half, I talked about how important humility was as a secondary power. Matter of fact, it's so important, it could almost be a primary power. Matter of fact, as an aside, a while ago, I mentioned this humility part in one of the other podcasts. I don't remember which one. It wasn't the focus, but it was an aside, which is I decided to see if I could figure out something. I had a funny feeling that Kevin Feige, the leader of Marvel, was very humble. I thought that might be the case, and I Googled it and I found a quote. I can't remember who said it, but it said, yeah, Kevin Feige's superpower is humility. So I thought that was pretty cool that I figured a good, humble leader would be found there. And I was correct. So, anyway, let's jump into what are some practical steps to cultivate humility. And when it comes to practical steps to cultivate humility, this is a hard one to do because there's been so much written about humility. There's probably books that I haven't even found yet about this. There's so many different viewpoints and everything else. When I was reading through in preparation for this, I actually became afraid that with all this information I was reading, because I didn't have a lot of my own unique ideas, I was afraid of actually perjuring myself by accident when writing the blog post and doing this podcast. So instead, I'm going to just read out some points from other people that have written about this. And you can go again, link in the description, go to my blog on it. You can skip down to the bottom, and I have a list of every single article I read, all my sources. I don't usually put a whole list in there. Usually I just kind of mix it into the post. But this time, there's so much information on there, and I just highly suggest you go ahead and go read some of that. But I'll go through some things that I've come across and try to expand on that a little bit. So, one of the blog posts I found was titled Humility in Leadership: The Unsung Skill of Great Leaders by a lady named Deanna Deborah. And in this article, she outlined the following, and this is taken directly from her post. Again, please go read her whole post. Credit where credit is due. She wrote, "Humble leaders ask for help and don't pretend to know everything." This is something I've seen, and it's hard to do. Again, when you run your own business, especially as a bootstrapper, you started up a business, you're running the business, it's your baby, you know what to do, you're the one who has the product, you're the one who has the service, you're the one who has the skills that pay the bills, as they say. And then to be honest and tell someone, I don't know everything, I need help with this or that or the other thing. Being able to do that, it's so important, and that makes you humble. Realizing you don't know everything. That's back to being a teachable spirit. Knowing that you don't know everything and admitting it keeps you humble, because then you know your limitations. And the great thing is, if you don't know something and you admit it, you can find someone that does, or someone that can help. And people will also be more willing to listen to you if you can say, hey, I don't know. That's a great question. Let me figure that out. And it really helps you be humble. Another thing, again, straight from this blog post, is humble leaders admit mistakes and, importantly, forgive mistakes. Some people, I've seen leaders that, for them, they never, ever make a mistake. Ever. They never mess up. Ever. And even when they do. And when they do mess up, it's not their fault. Again, mirror, window. Some of the worst leaders I've had never admitted their mistakes and blamed all their employees. And if you made a mistake, boy, you were in for it. One of these guys I've had like that, he was so bad at that, and there was lots of other things going on with this, but finally they went over the line, and the way they treated one of the employees, into the night, fortunately for me, I had already given my full 2-week notice. I had already worked 3 weeks of my 2-week notice just as a favor. And we all left. And no one came back. So a very proud, stubborn know-it-all can cost you everything. His business did eventually go bankrupt completely and is now gone. So, opposite of that. And it makes a big impact. Again, that guy, Chris, he was quick to forgive our mistakes. He was really, really cool. When he made mistakes, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up on that." Immediately. No, whoops, no, oh, I'm sorry, no dodging or avoiding it. Just like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, okay." And then, again, right to go into the direct link to A Teachable Spirit, she wrote, Deanna here, humble leaders adopt a growth mindset and are open to new ideas. Humble leaders have a teachable spirit. I'm not going to expand on this too much because I just did a whole podcast episode on that idea. Humble leaders put the needs of their team first. So if you want to be humble, you got to start thinking about yourself and think about your team. If you have a team, now again, if you're like me and you don't have a team because you don't have enough customers or you're just starting off and you're just building up, it's easy not to think about that. But when you do have a team, you think about teams first. Matter of fact, if you go to my podcast on hiring, my hiring series, where I talk about compensation. When I talk about employee compensation, I talk about making sure you're taking as good of care of your employee as you can when you hire them, when you pay them, and when you compensate them. That's the goal. The goal is to have the employee wonder if you're making any money because you're looking out for them first. Matter of fact, one of my first employees that I hired for my balloon business before COVID kind of killed it. I gave him a contract. Again, you can go look up my hiring series, which I'll probably be tackling here pretty soon as well. Some more practical steps. But when he got the contract, I tried to make it as generous as possible, payment-wise. 6 different ways to get paid. Whichever was the most pay for him for the given job, etc., etc. I tried to be as generous as I could and still make money. And he took it to his dad. He was a young kid, 20-something, first real job out of college. And his dad goes, "No, I like this contract. It's fine. It just, is he making any money?" So that was kind of the goal. I was actually surprised. That's what he thought because I was just following Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's advice on being creative with your compensation to take care of your employees. So I'm just following another guy, Dave Ramsey, and that just surprised me that that was the concern for my employee. Again, I just care about helping other people make money. I'm not always humble. Don't get me wrong. I'm not always a perfect guy when it comes to humility. My pride can get to me pretty quickly, especially when I'm working for other people. After being in business for years by yourself, where you're the boss, and now working for another boss, sometimes humility is just biting your tongue and choosing not to push back where you feel like you should because here you've been a boss before and you know better. It's not easy. Really not easy. And I have pushed back sometimes when I shouldn't have, I'm sure. And then back to Deanna here. It says, humble leaders model inclusive leadership. Now, I didn't get to dig into that one as much as I would have liked to, but inclusive leadership, in my mind, is when you include your team in the leadership. Matter of fact, I'm with Dave Ramsey on this one. He goes, I don't like employees. Employees show up late, leave early, and steal while they're there. He likes team members because we're on a team. We work together towards a goal. We're working together towards something else. So he hires team members because they want to be working as a team. And I took that advice again. Inclusive leadership means you ask your team members. You might have somebody that's brand new, but has their own ideas and they're a leader, but you include them. You listen to what people say. You include their ideas and you integrate them. And you know what's crazy? One thing, and I don't know, I don't follow him all that close, but I came across a clip of Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is a pretty smart guy. He started SpaceX. He's started, I think it was PayPal, maybe? I can't remember. But, he knows a lot of stuff. But I saw he was doing an interview with some guy, and the guy asked him a question about his spacecraft. He said, "Oh, why don't you do this and this, and why didn't you do this and this and this with your models?" And Elon Musk just stops right in the middle of the interview, and you just see him, and you see his eyes, and you see the gears working. You can just tell that he's thinking about it. And he goes, "Hey, yeah, we never thought about that. No, that's really good. I'm gonna have to do that now." And then he immediately went back and implemented the idea from a guy interviewing him. He didn't go, "Oh, I know better than you." No, he wasn't a know-it-all about it. Now, I don't know if he's a humble leader all the way through. I really don't know his leadership style. It was just that one clip showing that he was humble enough that when somebody made a suggestion, he immediately heard it and went, "Oh, yeah, no, that's a great idea." And then the rest of the clip, he's like, "Yeah, that really changed everything in our whole system here at SpaceX. That one question really changed the whole thing, and we're doing so much better now. Thank you for asking that question." So that's kind of inclusive leadership. Now, again, that wasn't his employee, but it works with employees as well. And lastly, a humble leader, back to Deanna here, humble leaders recognize and celebrate their employees. Again, the example I gave before of this guy, Chris, he would celebrate us and recognize us that we were doing good. And he would say, "Hey, we did great. Hey, look, team, we did great. We're an amazing team." Versus the other guy I mentioned who took all the credit from his employees and just bashed them for everything else. Now, I think those 6 points that I just made are a very good starting point for becoming humble in your leadership. And one thing to add to that, basically, one of the first things you really need to do is look inward and recognize your own limitations, like Robin Olds did. If you have a teachable spirit, as I mentioned, and they're joined together, you learn to put the needs of your team first, and then you direct them to a mutual goal that benefits everyone. Now, to kind of conclude here, I think when it comes to humility, again, humility is not weakness. You don't get a World War II double ace. He actually eventually became a triple ace fighter pilot. That's a weak coward or subservient. It doesn't work that way. He was humble, he was teachable, but he was anything but weak, and he was anything but subservient. He was humble, but not weak. You don't have to hear the term humble and think, "Oh no, I don't want to be a weakling." You don't have to be. That's something I think people push back when they think about it. You just push down your pride, which is the hardest thing to do. There's so many things that pride does to hold us back. So, to conclude, what is humility? I think one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, he wrote this. He said, "True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less." So, as I close out here, humility is more than just a secondary power. It's one of the primary ones you need to succeed. Although its visibility is less by its very nature. Humility, by its nature, is not going to say, "Hey, look, I'm humble." As a joke, me and my friends growing up, when I was teenagers, we had this joke. "I'm so humble, they gave me a medal. But then I wore it, so they took it away." "Well, I'm so humble, they gave me a trophy. But I displayed it, and they took it away." And so on and so forth. We joked about this for a good year. This was one of our side jokes about how humble we were, but then they took away our prize for being humble because we were bragging about how humble we were in our prize. So, anyway, another thing I want to start doing at the end of each podcast and each blog is I'm going to start asking a question of the week. I really do want more than just talking to a microphone and uploading and hope people listen. I want to build a community. I want people to help each other. I want people to become bootstrappers, to become entrepreneurs, to become better leaders, because this is how you help more people. In my opinion, one of the best ways to help people is to become a good leader, is to start a business and be an entrepreneur and hire people and give people jobs and treat them like human beings and be good bosses so that people can have a place where they can go and live and thrive. I mean, that for me is the goal of all of this, is everyone builds up everyone else to succeed. So with that in mind, I really want to build up a community of people that can help each other out, which is why I mentioned before in the mid-break that now the Discord server is now free to access. So with that, the question of the week is, have you considered humility before to be a weakness or a strength in the past? Have you had a truly humble leader like that guy Chris that made a permanent impact? And what can you do to become more humble without losing strength? If you want to discuss this, we've got Facebook, we've got Discord. You can reach me at email. Whatever. I would love to start a community. And I'm also starting to build up some stuff on X as well. I'm posting a little bit on X. Reach out. You can reach out. We can chat. We can talk. We can help each other out. And we can all grow. Anyway, with that, I've been your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor. Bye-bye. If today's episode added value to your day, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and consider giving us a stellar 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, or more. And remember, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, I will personally read it out in the next episode. To support the show, you can make a one-time gift by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap, donate through PayPal at paypal.me/IOCPOD, or make a contribution on our Patreon page at patreon.com/IOCPOD. Your support keeps the episodes coming. For even more content and exclusive perks, join our Patreon community at patreon.com/IOCPod. Patrons enjoy ad-free episodes, access to our private Discord server, early content previews, and a lot more. And here's an exciting offer. Get your free trial of our $5 a month Bootstrapper Community Explorer tier. This exclusive tier grants you ad-free content, Discord server access, and early content previews. Join us and be part of the inner circle. If you're feeling more generous, those who join tiers $25 a month and up will have a chance to be a featured guest on this podcast. A massive thank you to Wintergotten for generously providing the incredible intro and outro music at no cost. We appreciate their support. Be sure to check out Wintergotten's amazing work on YouTube at youtube.com/@Wintergotten. Until next time, I'm your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor, signing off. This is the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, brought to you by Athos Business Solutions. For our companion podcast, the Athos Business Podcast, hosted by Jason St. Clair, along with past episodes and related blogs, visit our website at athos.com. That's ATHEOZ.com or theoz.com. Goodbye for now.